All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Now, if you've been paying any attention to the news lately, you've definitely noticed this massive cloud of anxiety surrounding artificial intelligence. It's literally everywhere. But today, we're going to look directly at the source material so we can move our understanding of AI beyond the fear. We're going to break down exactly where this panic comes from, what the actual risks are, and most importantly, how we can steer this incredibly powerful technology toward a really positive future for the 21st century. To do that, we have to look back for a second. Think about historical industrial revolutions. Human beings were absolutely terrified of machines like the locomotive, mostly because we were afraid these giant metal beasts would physically break our bodies, right? But AI is an entirely different ballgame. Today, our modern fear is that the machine is going to replace our human judgment entirely. And according to our source material, what's really fascinating here is that this fundamental misunderstanding doesn't actually come from the literal power of the technology itself. It comes from our own profound lack of technical literacy. We simply don't understand how it works. And, that void of understanding gets filled with panic really fast.
Section 1. History of Tech Anxiety, a Predictable Cycle.
You see, human history actually shows us that our current anxiety toward AI is really just the latest chapter in a very long-standing tradition. We basically meet every massive technological leap, from that locomotive all the way to the modern smartphone, with this exact same sequence. First, we completely deny it's going to catch on. Second, we fall into a state of sheer fear about what it's going to destroy. And finally, step 3, we reach eventual integration, where it just becomes a completely normal, boring part of our daily lives. So the big question is, why are we currently stuck so deeply in that fear phase with AI? Moving on to Section 2, Media Hype and AI Panic, the Cult of Sensationalism. Well, the truth is, a lot of our current confusion is completely manufactured. You might be sitting there thinking you don't understand AI because you don't know how to write complex computer code. But the source material argues that the primary barrier to your technical literacy isn't the code at all. It's the sensationalized media coverage. We're dealing with a media landscape that actively prioritizes catastrophic glitches over actual meaningful context. They hype up the negatives because, let's face it, fear sells. And by doing that, they act as merchants of fear, rather than helping us actually figure out what's happening behind the screen. To fix this, the source suggests we desperately need a massive shift in how we talk about this tech. Right now, we get this sensational reporting that paints AI failures as some kind of intentional betrayal or malice, like the machine is actively out to get us. But imagine if the media treated AI failures the way a medical journal or a financial report handles errors. If they use contextual reporting, they could actually explain the what and the why of a failure. They could explain that a mistake is usually just a result of training data bias rather than some conscious, evil act by a computer. Even if an AI completely misses the mark, that failure is a teachable moment. Shining a light on why it happened would build objective technical literacy and totally dispel that fear factor.
Which brings us to Section 3. The real AI threat, national silos. Because while we're all so distracted by these hyped-up glitches and sensationalized news stories, we're actually ignoring the absolute most dangerous aspect of AI development today. The dystopian narrative we should actually be afraid of isn't some sci-fi movie where the AI mysteriously wakes up and takes over the world on its own. The real danger is isolated countries, national silos, programming AI strictly for their own benefit. Just imagine an AI programmed with the exact same bias, prejudice, and penchant for violence as its host country. Given our human historical track record of war and wanting to win at all costs, one country competing against another using highly advanced, locally biased AI is a huge problem. That isn't AI for the betterment of humanity. That's literally an arms race that could lead directly to war.
Section 4. A Global Prime Directive.
So, to avoid this terrifying, siloed future, the source material points to a really fascinating concept. It uses the term prime directive, which famously comes from Star Trek, and science fiction often predicts things that later become reality. The idea here is that our objective shouldn't be some restrictive web of local, national laws. Instead, we need a universal code of ethics for AI that completely transcends those national silos, and we do this by anchoring AI development to specific, non-negotiable pillars of human dignity. We're talking food, water, security, housing, healthcare, and education. If we focus the technology squarely on these fundamental human necessities, we successfully transform AI from being a dangerous intellectual competitor into a shared catalyst for global stability.
Right now, corporate greed and geopolitical maneuvering totally dominate the AI landscape, but those forces are ultimately fueled by public sentiment. And this is exactly where that media pivot becomes absolutely crucial.
If the media can shift from being a merchant of fear to a curator of technical literacy, it has the unique power to gently steer the public's perspective toward this prime directive. By educating people properly, we can collectively demand that AI prioritizes human necessity over national dominance and corporate profit.
Section 5. Pathways to Ethical AI.
Now you might be wondering, is this all just a pipe dream? How do we actually achieve this in the real world? Well, the good news is, the pathways to ethical AI are already being built. Major international organizations are already actively focused on a safe, global rollout of artificial intelligence. We've got the UN Office for Digital and Emerging Technologies, or UDET. There's UNESCO, the UN's Independent International Scientific Panel on AI, and the European AI Office. These organizations are taking the tangible next steps right now to ensure we don't fall into that trap of national silos. They're actually doing the heavy lifting to establish the groundwork for that universal code of ethics we just talked about.
And finally, Section 6, AI, a human mirror.
Of course, a massive shift like this isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to take all of us, public awareness, the media, corporations, governments, all pulling in the same direction. And that's because of one inescapable truth about this technology. AI is simply going to reflect what it is taught. And how is it taught? It's taught by the datasets used to train it. And guess what? Humans provide those datasets. So if we look at the outputs AI is giving us, and we really don't like the direction it's heading, we can't just blame the machine. We have to look closely at ourselves. The AI is literally just a mirror reflecting the exact human data we are feeding it. As we step further into the 21st century, it becomes incredibly clear that the true challenge here isn't the complexity of the technology itself. The real challenge is our own humanity. It's our biases, our fears, and our willingness to actually cooperate globally. We absolutely have the power to define this prime directive, but it requires us to be educated, objective, and united. Which leaves us with the ultimate question as we guide this world-changing technology into the future. What exactly do you want to see in that mirror?